After suffering a sudden loss, it's easy to find yourself coping in unhealthy ways.
Unexpected losses for a young adult can be extremely traumatic and impactful.
She went through almost $100,000 in 4 or 5 months.
So when someone comes along to offer solace, you often take it.
He provided love and support that she was missing. He was a shoulder for her to cry on.
But what if the one who makes us whole enables our worst instincts?
She was so vengeful, and she knows how her boyfriend reacts.
I kind of knew that she must be delusional.
When two lost souls come together, does it come at a cost?
To investigators, it doesn't matter which one wielded the knife.
She let one moment of weakness ruin her life forever.
It was the wrong information, and it ended up backfiring.
September 5th, 2014. On the outskirts of the Simpson County, Mississippi town of McGee, summer has given way to autumn.
Simpson County consists of 2 cities. It's Mendenhall and McGee. Everyone knows everyone.
What you'll find in McGee is a lot of farms, a lot of single-family homes.
Around 4 p.m., 66-year-old Eisenhower Durr arrives home after picking up his granddaughter, Chantel, from school.
It was like any other afternoon. Chantel lived with her grandparents, so her grandfather was often the one to pick her up at the end of the day.
But as they approach the front door, something unexpected happens.
2 unknown individuals flee his residence.
2 people come charging out of the front of the house wearing masks.
The assailants run behind the house and into the woods.
Mr. Durr had a sinking feeling in his stomach that something really bad may have happened here.
Eisenhower is immediately worried about his wife, Neoma Durr, who had been home all day.
That's when he went into the house and he saw that Mom was in a pool of blood and she wasn't moving.
Eisenhower makes a desperate call to 911 operators.
He's been married to his wife for 42 years. I cannot imagine how he feels when he sees the love of his life like this. It's a tragedy. It's his worst nightmare.
For 64 years, Neoma Durr lived a life of purpose, principle, and compassion.
She was a very sweet woman. She was very God-fearing.
My mother was a Christian woman. She loved to go to church.
Neoma's husband of over 4 decades, Eisenhower Durr, was a renowned reverend in the area.
Both of my parents were pretty laid back. They didn't fight each other. If they had a disagreement, they would still call each other honey while they're having a disagreement.
This was the couple that everybody wanted to be like.
Together, Neoma and Eisenhower had formed a beautiful blended family.
Eisenhower had fathered a daughter named Cynthia in his teenage years, but Neoma had always treated her like one of her own.
She just was a very non-judgmental person. She was easy to talk to. She made you feel comfortable.
In addition to Cynthia, the Durrs had 4 other children and 3 grandchildren.
2 of which were Cynthia's daughters, Chantel and Kendrala Keys.
Cynthia, she was around a good bit, and her daughters, Kendrala Keys and Chantel, they came over pretty often.
At one point, we were going to church together, so they would come to church with us. And then after church, we'd hang out as a family at the house.
But eventually, a series of unexpected tragedies would end up testing the family's faith.
Cynthia's husband, Kendrick, was killed in a horrific car accident.
Shortly after Kendrick's death, Cynthia was diagnosed with a terminal illness.
She ended up passing away 3 months after Kendrick died.
Mr. Durr and Neoma had just suffered a parent's worst fear of losing a child.
However, no one was more shattered than Cynthia's two daughters, Chantel and Kendrela.
They had just lost both of their parents within 3 months of each other, and it was devastating for the both of them.
Fortunately, Neoma and Eisenhower stepped in for their two granddaughters.
My dad tried his best to honor Cynthia's wishes, which was to look after Kendrela and Chantel after she passed away.
They were granted custody of Chantel because she was still underage.
Kendrela at this point was a little bit older, but they still made sure to do what they could to look after her. They continued to raise her as their own.
No one could have predicted that within just a few short years, Neoma herself would end up in grave danger. On September 5th, 2014, Eisenhower Durr is on the phone with 911 operators.
He entered the house to find his wife lying in a pool of blood.
Mississippi investigators swiftly respond.
They quickly confirmed Mr. Durr's worst fears and pronounced her dead at the scene.
Detective Troy Travis is among the first inside.
Chaotic, I guess, would be the word to use to describe it. It was a bloody scene, very violent scene. Mrs. Durr was bound hand and foot with zip ties.
Police find a baseball bat near Neoma Durr's body that they believe could have been the weapon used in this crime.
But upon further investigation, police realize it wasn't just a bat that ultimately took the 64-year-old grandmother's life.
She had been stabbed in her thighs, her torso.
It just didn't make sense that something so horrible would happen to such a sweet woman like Neoma Durr.
The question now is, who did this to Neoma and why?
September 5th, 2014, Simpson County, Mississippi. Local police have just arrived at the home of 64-year-old grandmother Neoma Durr after receiving a desperate call from her husband, Eisenhower.
She appears to have been beaten with the baseball bat and stabbed several times in her thighs and torso.
Investigators also determine the home has been ransacked.
Drawers have been opened, things have been pulled out, and then they notice that Neoma's wallet is missing from her purse.
Was this a burglary that went sideways?
Whatever the motive, Neoma's killers took no chances.
Detectives found that the phone line had been cut, and also the intercom had been pulled off the wall, and it also had been cut.
So whoever did this, they wanted to make sure that Neoma could not call for help.
But the sheer brutality of the combined bat and knife attack makes it difficult to chalk up to a simple home invasion.
She was stabbed 69 times. That's a lot. It seems like this was personal.
To consider somebody having as much anger as it requires to stab someone 69 times is very difficult to fathom.
When I saw Mrs. Durr's body and the way she was bound, I believed it to be a crime that was committed by someone that she knew.
The senseless killing hits Neoma's loved ones hard.
I got a phone call from my dad. As soon as I answered, I couldn't even make out what he was saying. Like, he was crying, and he said, "Neoma's dead." And I said, "What?" He said, "She's dead." And then I just started screaming and crying.
When I hear that my mother is no longer alive, I really didn't know what to think, to be honest. I'm like, what's going on?
In their search for answers, investigators first turned to Eisenhower.
Detectives had to ask him if he knew of anyone who would harm Neoma.
And of course, he said no. Like, we had no idea who could have or who would have wanted to commit a crime like that, not against her.
He didn't have any idea who would harm his wife in this way, and everything happened so fast that he didn't recognize the assailants. Both of them had their face covered.
Investigators assure Eisenhower that they're going to do everything in their power to track down his beloved wife's killers.
Investigators are committed to finding out who is responsible. They begin to fan out over the neighborhood. They're knocking on neighbors' doors, asking questions, trying to see if anybody has any information about the incident that happened that day.
Then, their legwork pays off when they speak to a neighbor that lives a few streets over from the Durr's home.
They talked to one neighbor who saw a car turn around in their driveway just minutes after the murder took place.
Police immediately issue an APB for a blue sedan like the one the neighbor described seeing that day.
However, as hours turn to days, police are no closer to putting faces on Neoma Durr's killers.
Investigators used that entire weekend following the incident to scour the neighborhood and talk to as many people as possible, but at the end of that weekend, there was still no leads and they had no luck with any additional answers.
But on the following Monday morning, detectives get a huge break in the case.
Investigators receive a call from a person who claims to have information about Neoma's murder.
He thinks he knows who's responsible.
My parents, they literally did everything together, and they were very close. So for him to lose his wife of 42 years that he did everything with was heartbreaking to him. He lost like 30 pounds within a couple of months. Just lost his appetite, just couldn't eat. He would just lay in bed all day and do nothing. He was just so depressed.
September 2014. Detectives in Simpson County, Mississippi are on a mission to find the individuals responsible for the murder of 64-year-old Neoma Durr.
Neoma Durr was found by her husband, bound, gagged, and stabbed to death inside her home. She had been very badly beaten.
Two masked individuals were seen running from Neoma's home, but her husband could not make out any type of characteristics about them.
So far, the police have little to go on.
Neoma was a beloved grandmother who didn't seem to have any enemies, so everyone was puzzled when this happened to her.
But on the morning after the murder, investigators receive their first big break.
They received a call from a man by the name of Anthony Moore, who says he has information about the case.
Anthony says he lives 140 miles south of Simpson County in Gulfport, Mississippi. According to Anthony, he believes that a friend of his cousin's may be responsible for Neoma Durr's murder.
Anthony explains that he's been staying at his cousin's house, and yesterday they received an unexpected visit.
Around noon, his cousin's friend, Kendra Keys, shows up unexpectedly at his home with her son. Kendra asked Anthony's cousin if she could watch their son so that she and her boyfriend could go to a local casino.
Anthony and his cousin didn't have any plans that day, so they agreed to watch the young boy.
But hours later, as nightfall arrived, Anthony and his cousin grew concerned.
Anthony said that when Kendrala didn't return by 6 p.m. to pick up her son, his cousin gave her a call to see where she was. At that point, Kendrala said that she was on her way back and should be there soon.
Kendrala finally returned at around 7 p.m. with her boyfriend, Cottrell Vernado.
Anthony and his cousin noticed that there was something not right at all about the couple's appearance.
Both Kendrala and Cottrell are covered in blood.
Now, Anthony noted that they were driving a blue Toyota Camry. This is the same car that the neighbor spotted minutes after the murder happened.
Anthony says Kendrala explained that the reason they were so late is because they had a change of plans.
She admitted to Anthony and his cousin that they actually hadn't been at the casino, but had traveled 2.5 hours away to Simpson County to visit her grandparents.
The couple didn't provide any more details. But it wasn't long before Anthony put 2 and 2 together.
Soon after they picked up their son, Anthony saw a news report about Neoma's death.
Anthony's cousin, Jasmine, confirmed everything he said.
Could a member of Neoma Durr's tight-knit family really be responsible for her death?
Law enforcement found it hard to believe that Neoma's granddaughter was capable of doing something like this.
So the question becomes, who is Kendrala Keys?
Mississippi native Kendrala Keys was no stranger to trouble.
So Kendrala, she was my niece. When she became a teenager, she kind of started getting a little rebellious and kind of started going left instead of right. She would just do little stuff like going off with random boys that you don't know in the middle of the night.
Years later, when Kendrala's parents passed away, the already fragile young woman was completely broken.
2 major losses such as these, especially unexpected losses for a young adult, can be extremely traumatic and impactful.
Kendrala was very close to her parents. And when they passed away, her grandparents, Eisenhower and Neoma, tried to step in.
Kendrala wasn't very accepting of them trying to take her parents' place.
She would sometimes be a little jealous of my sister Shamice. I guess she thought that she was supposed to be treated exactly the same, which, you know, my mother did, my father did too. But she just maybe wanted that extra mile done for her.
Eventually, Kendrala turned her back on her remaining family members.
Kendrala kind of disappeared. I hadn't heard from her in several years, and she never reached out.
Kendrala's parents had left her and her sister a hefty life insurance policy. But Kendrala tore through the money in no time.
I think she probably spent that money up in, 4 or 5 months. She went through almost $100,000.
At just 22 years old, Kendrala found herself broke and alone.
I can imagine that would leave someone like Kendrala really eager and desperate for any sort of stabilizing force to kind of give her this return to normalcy.
That's when she met 28-year-old Cottrell Vernado.
Cottrell was very outgoing and expressed an immediate interest in Kendrala.
They ended up talking for hours, and she found herself sharing things with him she had never shared with anyone.
Cottrell provided love and support that she was missing from her parents when they passed away. He was a shoulder for her to cry on.
He had experienced his own set of tragedies growing up, so he could really relate to what she was going through.
It was kind of like two lost souls coming together.
And as the two lost souls grew closer, their commitment to each other became unshakable.
Not long after they became an item, Kendrela became pregnant.
They welcomed their first child together, a beautiful baby boy.
The future looked bright. Kendrela expected that they would have a very meaningful and substantial relationship going forward.
So how has their course in life taken such a dark turn?
Now, Kendrela and Cottrell are wanted for homicide. Worse yet, they're wanted for the homicide of Kendrela's step-grandmother, Neoma.
It seemed unbelievable that anyone would do this to their grandparent, but all signs were pointed to Kendrela and Cottrell.
Police wanted to track them down ASAP.
In September of 2014, Mississippi investigators believe Kendrela Keys and her boyfriend, Cottrell Vernado, may be responsible for the murder of 64-year-old Neoma Durr, Kendrela's own grandmother.
A witness saw the couple the day of the murder and said they were covered in blood.
According to the witness, Kendrela had mentioned going to her grandmother's house that day.
The manhunt is on for Kendrela and Cottrell, but it's no easy task.
Police are having a hard time getting a hold of the couple. They're not answering their phone, and they weren't home at their residence in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
But 2 days later, investigators finally zero in on their suspects.
Investigators have been notified that Kendrela and Cottrell have been spotted.
Kendrela and Cottrell were at a local Walmart.
Police are on the scene within minutes.
They find them in a Walmart parking lot and place them under arrest.
Fortunately, the couple's son was safe with a relative at the time.
Inside the couple's car, police find a key piece of evidence that bolsters their case against them.
They found a knife in the vehicle that they believed was the murder weapon used to kill Neoma.
After transporting their suspects back to the station, detectives sit down with Kendrela first.
She is clearly shaken up. She's very nervous. She's very afraid.
However, she agrees to cooperate and tell them what happened on September 5th.
Kendrela explains to investigators that things have been rocky between her and her grandmother for a while now.
According to Kendrela, their beef centered around the insurance money left behind by her late parents, Cynthia and Kendrick.
Both of her parents had passed away. Miss Keys and her sister had received the financial gains from their deaths, and Mr. Durr was managing those funds to disperse to the children when they needed it.
Cynthia wanted him to be in control, watch over their money, because her children being so young, Kendrela and Chantel, she knew that they wouldn't be responsible enough to handle their finances correctly. I think a lot of us knows what happens when you put a lot of money in a young person's hands.
They were trying to save her from spending all of everything that she had coming to her when her parents died.
But to hear Kendrela tell it, she had been unfairly denied.
Kendrela felt like she was not able to pretty much have access to her money. She felt that her grandparents decided for her and controlled how the money was used.
We know that anger is one of the stages of grief, so all of this kind of just created for Kendrela just a burning anger and resentment.
In her anger, Kendrela singled out her step-grandmother Neoma Durr.
Kendrala really loved her grandfather. It was easier for her to take it out on Neoma. When it came to money and her inheritance, it was easier for her to blame Neoma.
Eventually, things escalated to where Kendrala became completely estranged from her whole family.
Out on her own, and after blowing through the money her grandfather allotted to her in a matter of months, Kendrala began to accept that she'd used up her insurance nest egg.
Her time away from her family helped her heal and lessen her need to blame, at least at first.
But that all changed when she met Cottrell Vernado.
Kendrala admitted to telling Cottrell about some of the issues that she was having with her grandparents and Neoma.
Cottrell didn't believe that Kendrala should let her grandparents get off so easy.
The man who offered her a shoulder to cry on when she most needed it saw her tragedy as a potential opportunity.
Over time, Cottrell pressured her into hatching a plan to intimidate Neoma into giving them the money.
The couple didn't have much, and now they had a child to pay for. Cottrell believed that Kendrala's grandparents were the ticket.
He felt like Kendrala's grandparents actually owed them this money.
At first, Kendrala refused to consider reconnecting with her family.
She'd walked away from her family to get a fresh start, and being with Cottrell was supposed to be her new beginning.
Even though Kendrala was upset with her grandmother, she felt uneasy about the stuff that Cottrell was proposing to her. After all, Neoma was family.
But Cottrell insisted he was her new family, and she needed to follow his lead.
With enough pressing from Cottrell, Kendrala decided to give in. But she was convinced by Cottrell that Neoma would not get hurt. They were just going to intimidate her.
On September 5th, the couple put their plan into action.
Kendrala admitted that around 12 noon, she and Cottrell both drove about 90 minutes to Gulfport, Mississippi, to her friend's house to drop off their son.
Then they made the 2.5-hour drive to Simpson County, where Kendrala's grandparents lived.
Kendrala says that after they parked the car, they walked to the home, and they had masks, zip ties, and a bat with them. They were surprised to find the door unlocked, so it was easy for them to get inside.
Once the couple came face to face with Neoma, she was in shock.
They immediately began demanding her to give them the money and trying to intimidate her.
Cottrell instructed Kendrala to cut the phone line to prevent Neoma from calling for help.
However, the 64-year-old put up a fight.
According to Kendrala, a struggle ensued when they attempted to restrain her.
They zip-tied her arms and feet together.
But with Neoma still refusing to cooperate, the altercation took a violent turn Kendrala says she never saw coming.
Cottrell began his vicious attack on Mrs. Durr.
Cottrell went absolutely ballistic.
On September 7th, 2014, Mississippi detectives are speaking with 25-year-old Kendrala Keys about the events leading up to her step-grandmother's murder.
64-year-old Neoma Durr was found brutally beaten and stabbed to death in her own home.
Kendrala stated that she did not expect Neoma to be hurt, that they were going over there only to intimidate her.
And they were doing that in an effort for financial gains, for Mrs. Durr to tell them where the money was hidden in the house.
But when Neoma refused to cooperate, Kendrela's boyfriend, Catrell Vernado, took the altercation to a new level of terror.
Catrell began his vicious attack on Mrs. Durr by striking her in the head with the baseball bat.
And Kendrela says the situation only spiraled from there.
Catrell had a knife.
Miss Keys stated that she was holding down the legs of Miss Durr, her grandmother, while Catrell was stabbing her in the lower abdominal region.
Kendrela said she was frozen in fear.
Suddenly, Neoma stopped struggling.
According to Kendrela, she realized that the worst had happened and Neoma was dead.
Regardless, Catrell wasn't going to let them leave empty-handed.
Catrell then instructed Kendrela to get the wallet out of Neoma's purse. Kendrela was so terrified at this point that she did whatever she was told.
Then the two of them ran out of the house as Kendrela's grandfather was just getting home.
On their way back to Gulfport to pick up their son, Kendrela and Catrell stopped at a Walmart in Hattiesburg to dispose of Neoma's wallet, but not before they used her credit card to buy a big screen TV.
Kendrela insists that the killing was a complete shock to her.
She completely didn't expect for her boyfriend to take the aggressive measures that he did, so she blamed the actual murder solely on her boyfriend, Catrell.
Now investigators want to question Catrell to see if he can verify Kendrela's story.
However, when detectives sit down with Catrell, he does quite the opposite.
Catrell acts oblivious to why he's there and denies any involvement or knowledge in the murder of Mrs. Durr. Denies that he was even in the area.
Then after some pressing, he says that he rode by Neoma's house, but he kept going towards Gulfport.
And further along in the interview, he admits that he was at the residence, but he does not go in the residence.
So now he's trying to throw Kendrela under the bus and blame the whole thing on her.
He said that he just stood outside the home while Kendrela went inside.
Which forensic evidence would later prove that to be a lie.
When the autopsy results came back, his DNA was found under my mom's fingernail. So we know that he was just lying.
Despite their efforts to throw blame elsewhere, both Kendrela and Catrell must answer for Neoma's death.
To investigators, Kendrela and Catrell are equally culpable for this homicide. To them, it doesn't matter which one wielded the knife.
Authorities charged them both with capital murder.
Neoma's family applauds the decision.
At first, I was a little shocked, but Kendrela's already, kind of out there at the time. I kind of knew that she must be delusional.
I was surprised at first when I found out that it was her. But then when I thought about it, she was so vengeful, making my parents seem like the bad people or the villains. And she knows how her boyfriend reacts. And that's what happened.
But will the couple ever see their day in court?
Catrell is in the exercise yard of the jail when he makes a run for it.
He hops the fence.
Catrell has escaped.
I think that Kendrela came up with her own scenario in her own head, which was misguided. And she passed that on to her boyfriend, who had never met my mother. And maybe that angered him, the information that Kendrella was sharing with him. Unfortunately, my dad and my mom were trying to do the right thing, but it ended up backfiring.
In September of 2014, Kendrella Keys and her boyfriend, Cottrell Vernado, stand accused of fatally assaulting Kendrella's grandmother, 64-year-old Neoma Durr.
Authorities have charged Kendrella Keys and Cottrell Vernado with capital murder. It was a particularly brutal crime where Neoma had been stabbed and beaten to death in her own home.
Neoma's family is eager to get some justice for this heinous crime.
But on November 17th, with the couple's trial looming, the unthinkable happens.
Cottrell was in the exercise yard of the jail when he decided to make a run for it.
The guards aren't quick enough to catch him, and he's able to jump the fence.
Cottrell is nowhere to be found. He's escaped.
Law enforcement tend to take an escape personally, and so they're highly motivated to capture that escaped inmate.
As law enforcement scours the area for Cottrell, Marcus Durr receives an unexpected letter.
Kendrella sent a letter in the mail addressed to my brother Marcus and to my dad.
This is how it starts off. Dear grandfather, I know I'm probably the last person you wanted to hear from, but I'm writing nonetheless.
In the letter, she basically said that she didn't commit the crime and she wasn't there. She just basically denied everything.
I hate that you think I or anyone I'm associated with would hurt your mother, Marcus.
At one point, she said, I'm sorry that your wife passed that way. I know firsthand what it's like to lose someone close to you. And then she also threw in there, you know, after all, we're all family.
She wrote, I'm praying for you all. You can come visit me anytime. Find peace in Jesus' name. Sincerely, K. Keys. Really a bunch of nonsense. That's what she wrote.
While the family continues trying to make sense of Kendrella's strange letter, police are zeroing in on Cottrell.
Simpson County Sheriff's Department is actively looking for Cottrell, and eventually he is apprehended on the other side of town.
No one has ever got out of a Simpson County jail and stayed out.
Once back in custody, Cottrell's murder charges are upgraded to include prison escape. And it's then that he makes a surprising admission.
Cottrell changes his story and admits to killing Neoma Durr.
Now that prosecutors have confessions from both defendants, Kendrella and Cottrell, they decide to offer a plea.
If the couple takes the plea, they'll be sentenced to life in prison, but they'll escape the death penalty.
Both Cottrell and Kendrella took the deal.
I guess they would know that if they take it to trial, they would probably be playing with their life.
I think justice was served. You always reap what you sow. If you commit a crime, then you gotta do the time.
Kendrella Keys will now have a lifetime behind bars to think about what she sacrificed for her man.
One moment of weakness and a lifetime of regret. That message would fit her to a T. She let one moment of weakness ruin her life forever.
In relationships, you have to be very careful who you trust. You have to be very careful who you share information with. You have to be very careful who has influence over you.
My mother, Miss Neoma Durr, was a good woman who really didn't deserve something like this to happen to her. But ultimately it did happen, and it broke a lot of people's hearts.
In the heat of love, it's all too easy to lose sight of who we are and what we mean to those who've always been there for us and have always wanted the best for us. If you find yourself having to choose between your man and your family, choose wisely. For most, obtaining and maintaining love requires careful nurturing.
She swooped in and she latched on.
As their relationship developed, their emotional connection grew.
But for others, it can necessitate something more, something immoral, perhaps even something illegal.
I just think that she was like infatuated with my father. She really was obsessed with him.
That's when love can break apart and into something extremely dangerous.
I found a dead body over in the woods.
When you've taken things too far, is there any turning back?
We know what happened. What happened? There was no limit to what she was willing to do for my father's love. Her answer was death.
March 12th, 2017. It's a chilly spring day in the sprawling community of Henrico, Virginia.
Henrico County, Virginia is kind of an umbrella to Richmond, the city. It wraps around the city proper.
Henrico is pretty much known for its residences, as well as having pretty good schools.
However, later that afternoon, an unsettling chain of events is beginning to unfold.
Around 5 p.m., a young woman named Katie Turner started to get worried about her boyfriend, Martre Coles.
Martre had plans to take a bus from his home in Henrico to Florida to visit a college. And Katie was expecting to hear from him. She thought he would text or call to say goodbye before he left for his trip.
But Katie hadn't heard anything from Martre since 10 a.m.
As the hours went by, Katie's mind just starts to spiral. Did he get on that bus? Was there an accident? Was he abducted somewhere?
Katie decides to reach out to Martre's sister, Michelle Coles, to see if she's heard from him.
Martre stayed at Michelle's house the night before he was supposed to leave for his college trip.
Katie had called me and said she had been trying to contact Martre for a couple of hours. I thought it was very unusual for him not to respond to any of the messages.
Michelle tells Katie that she had dropped Martre off at their father's house that morning, and he was supposed to head to the bus stop from there.
She asked me to go by the house to see if Martre was still there. Was he asleep? Had he left? I called my sister and told my sister what was going on. Michelle stated she called and she didn't speak to him either. And I said, come get me. We're gonna go to my dad's house.
As night falls on Henrico County, the sisters arrive at their father's home, where Michelle had dropped off Martre earlier that day.
They both were met by her dad and his girlfriend, Denise. Denise confirmed, hey, I just saw Martre and he was leaving to get on the bus to go to Full Sail University.
According to Denise, Martre had left for the bus around 12 p.m.
She was like, I don't know. He just up and left. It didn't make absolutely any sense to me. I never believed that Martre would have left without saying anything to us. So when we left, me and Michelle got in the car, and I instantly burst out in tears. And I told Michelle, something not right.
For 19-year-old Martre Coles, the art of drawing was always his #1 passion.
Being an artist, it runs in the family. He drew like with pencils, ink pens, crayons, markers, and things of that nature.
He wanted to go to school for graphic design for video games.
At the age of 16, Martre leaned heavily into his art as a coping mechanism when his mother unexpectedly passed away from cardiac arrest.
Martre took my mom's death very hard. It was like a cloud over him.
But Martre wasn't the only one suffering. His father, Terrence Coles, was also devastated by the loss of his wife.
Unfortunately, the death did nothing to bring father and son together. Instead, it made matters worse.
He was so busy mourning himself, I don't think he addressed Martre's feelings like at all.
That within itself can create a wedge between a father and a son.
Thankfully, things seemed to improve when Terrence began a relationship with co-worker Denise Gay.
As their relationship developed and their emotional connection grew, Terrence invited Denise and her young daughter Mia to move into his home with himself and with his son Martre. And this happened pretty quickly. They had only been dating for about a month before she moved in.
Denise also formed a bond with Martre.
Denise was really loving to Martre and helped him try to get into his dream school, which is Full Sail University in Florida.
She was helping him with the financial aid and getting his application in and speaking with the school advisor, getting a visit of the campus.
For Martre, leaving his hometown of Henrico, Virginia, was a welcome chance at a fresh start.
The morning I dropped Martre off at my father's house, we was talking about, his excitement going down to the school. He didn't really know what he wanted to do as far as his life after my mom's passing. And now he feel like, he knows what to do.
But now, no one has heard from Martre for more than 6 hours.
He hasn't responded to friends or family after they've made repeated attempts to contact him.
And his sisters are starting to panic.
It caused an alarm immediately. He was on a lot of pills and stuff for depression and stuff like that.
He had contemplated suicide in the past.
It didn't help that Martre's strained relationship with his father had been getting worse and worse in the days leading up to his disappearance.
There were some odd things happening around their house that Martre kept getting blamed for.
One of the weird things that happened was that Terrence had discovered a pentagram drawn under the carpet in Martre's room. But when he confronted Martre about it, Martre said, "I didn't do it."
Terrence had held on to his deceased wife's old car, and one day it caught fire. And again, he blamed Martre. And Martre swore up and down that he did not set this car on fire.
Could the added tension with his father be the reason that Martre suddenly took off from home?
There was a concern that maybe he'd harmed himself or done something drastic instead of going on his college tour.
The next morning, with Martre's whereabouts still unclear, his loved ones look for any possible clues by searching his emails.
Kate and Martre were so close that Martre actually shared some of his login information with her.
As she scans the correspondences Martre received from Full Sail University in Florida, something catches her eye.
It was fullsail@gmail.com and not fullsail@edu.com. If this is a legit school, why would they write him an acceptance from a Gmail account?
When Katie found the emails, I knew something was wrong.
Things were just not adding up. Something was not right.
In March of 2017, 19-year-old Martre Coles was looking forward to pursuing his passion for art by attending Full Sail University in Florida.
He really had talent. He wanted to design for video games, maybe do comic books, and so he really had an incredibly bright future ahead of him.
But after leaving for a college tour of the university on March 12th, Martrey has inexplicably vanished.
He had supposedly left his father's house around 12 p.m. to catch a bus to Florida where the university was located. But no one had heard from him since.
And now, nearly 24 hours after Martrey's loved ones last made contact with him, suspicious emails from the college have set off even more alarm bells.
In the back end of those emails, it was a Gmail account that sent them and not an EDU account, which normally every college has an EDU account.
When Martrey's loved ones reach out to the university, their suspicions are confirmed.
These emails that Martrey had been receiving from Full Sail University were not real.
For Martrey's sisters, this bewildering piece of information sends a clear message that they will need a lot more help in finding their brother.
Me and Marquisha went down to the police precinct. We told them that we wanted to file an immediate missing persons report, and they put the report in.
The officers took the information, but because Martrey was an adult, they didn't do anything.
As days turn into weeks since Martrey's disappearance, family members can only hope that Martrey will eventually turn up safe.
Michelle and I were actually looking day and night for Martrey, trying to piece together what happened to Martrey.
Then, 3 weeks after Martrey mysteriously vanished, a disturbing discovery comes to light.
On April 2nd, 2017, a local resident named Aaron Thomas is out for a walk on his lunch break.
This is a location that is an industrial part of the county.
As he's making his way through, he sees this big plastic bin wedged between some bushes.
When he got closer to that bin, he saw shoes hanging out the side. He decided to further investigate and then found out, oh, wait a second, there are legs and feet attached to these shoes. That's not good.
When he opens it up, he could never have imagined the nightmare that he would find inside this bin.
That is when he saw a human body.
In shock, Aaron immediately dials 911.
I found a dead body over in the woods, and I just reported it. I don't know what to do.
Were they still breathing at all?
No.
Okay. I've got police around.
When police get there, they did discover what looked like a younger African-American male.
The victim has been doused with powdered lime.
Lime is a substance that will help keep the smell of decaying flesh down.
His hands are bound behind his back with duct tape, but there was no signs of a physical struggle. There were no defensive wounds, there were no stabbing wounds, there was no blood. There was also no identification. They didn't know who this victim was.
However, a quick search of recent missing persons reports provides investigators with a hit.
The first report that Detective Egan receives is the one that Michelle and Marquisha Coles filed on behalf of their brother, Martrey.
It was obvious when she placed the two images next to each other that the body that was found was, in fact, the missing Martrey Coles.
After Martrey's remains are transferred to the medical examiner, investigators are able to ascertain how he died.
The way that Martrey died was that he was suffocated.
The toxicology report revealed that Martrey had 2 drugs in his system. He had the sleeping agent trazodone, and he also had GHB.
gamma hydroxybutyrate, which commonly we call the rape drug, can be a suppressant.
Investigators believe that Martre had been drugged first, and then, after becoming drowsy, was then suffocated to death.
But who did this to Martre? And why?
He was a good kid going to good places, and it was all stripped away. What kind of a person would do something like that?
My favorite memory of Martre is when he graduated. At the graduation, he kind of got like emotional. He took his diploma, he blew a kiss at me and my family, and then he blew a kiss to my mom and pointed up to my mom. After that, we all met up. He kind of like brushed past everybody, and he came to me, he gave me like the biggest, warmest hug. He was a warm-hearted young man.
April 2nd, 2017. 3 weeks after he was first reported missing, Martre Coles's body has been discovered inside a plastic bin in a wooded industrial park near Richmond, Virginia.
Investigators had come up with a cause of death for Martre. He was drugged and suffocated. But they still didn't have a why. They didn't know who could possibly want to hurt this young man.
Investigators set into motion a plan to find the person responsible for the heinous crime.
Police place a camera in the woods, trying to figure out if somebody would come back to the scene of the crime.
In an effort to avoid tipping off Martre's killer, police make the difficult decision to delay informing Martre's family that they have found his body.
We did not feel like we could even share with the siblings, who of course had expressed this immense amount of concern for their little baby brother, because they could actually kind of blow the cover and we would lose an opportunity to take the next steps of the investigation.
However, as detectives wait to see if the killer will return, a police sergeant from another division reaches out with information that stops them in their tracks.
The sergeant informs that 2 officers within his unit had documented an incident that occurred on March 31st. This was just 2 days prior to Martre's body being discovered.
On the evening of March 31st, there had been an alarm call where Martre Coles was living with his father, Terrence, and Denise Gay.
When officers arrived, they were met by Denise Gay's 12-year-old daughter, Mia, and older daughter, LaToya.
LaToya told the officers that Denise and Terrence were both at work.
And she explains to them that the burglary alarm was a false alarm.
Convinced nothing is wrong, officers prepared to leave. But as they begin to exit the home, young Mia made an unexpected request.
Mia asked the second officer if she could speak with him off to the side.
Once alone with the officer, Mia began to share a frightening story.
She says she saw her mother, Denise, and her older sister, LaToya, kill Martre.
In excruciating detail, Mia laid out what she claimed were Martre's final moments alive.
She says it started around 10:30 a.m. on the morning of March 12th when Terrence was at work. Martre had just been dropped back at the house after spending the night at his sister Michelle's.
Denise was helping Martre with this plaster face mask project that he was doing for Full Sail University. She says she could hear Martre start to get sick and throw up.
Then Mia heard Martre yelling, "Get off of me," and she ran to his room, and she saw her mother and her older sister on top of Martre.
Her mother locks eyes with her and simply gives her a hand gesture to send her back to her room, where she retreats and stays for a period of time. That was the last time she saw Martre ever again.
Mia later heard what sounded like something being pushed across the floor.
As she opened the door to see what was happening, she saw her sister pushing a Tupperware bin on the ground. Her mother indicated to her that she was to remain in her room, that they would be back.
At the time, officers were unsure what to make of Mia's account. They had interacted with Mia before and were aware she had a troubled past.
They were familiar with Mia because they had responded to this house on a previous incident. Mia had tried to run away from home after she was upset about a disciplinary action taken against her for some bad behavior.
It's a point that LaToya emphasized to the officers.
LaToya then is calling her mother, Denise, and explaining to her what Mia has told the police officers. It is during this time that Denise Gay is on her daughter's phone, speaking to the officer, trying to describe Mia as, again, a mischievous young lady, 12-year-old, who makes up stories and that they should not believe anything that she's saying.
The officers ended up leaving without taking any further statements on the matter.
For whatever reason that we, to this day, don't know, no investigator came out on the scene that night.
It seems unbelievable that the officers didn't do more with this information, since Martre had already been reported missing at this point. But since they weren't taking Mia very seriously, they never looked up the report on Martre to connect the dots.
Now, homicide detectives have to wonder, was 12-year-old Mia telling the truth?
You flip back to that day in the burglar alarm call, it totally made sense. Detectives, they're like, wait a second here, we got something.
Investigators know they need to speak with Denise and LaToya as soon as possible.
And later that same day, they'll get their chance.
She was just very nonchalant, completely unconcerned.
Where do you think he is? I'm looking for him.
In April of 2017, Henrico County detectives have just made a stunning break in the murder case of 19-year-old Martre Coles.
Martre had been living at his father's house along with his father's girlfriend, Denise Gay, and Denise's 12-year-old daughter, Mia. According to Mia, she had witnessed her mother and her older sister, LaToya, kill Martre with their bare hands.
Although a troubled 12-year-old girl isn't the strongest witness, police can't ignore the fact that Mia's account matches key investigative details they've collected about the murder.
The way that Martre died was that he was suffocated.
That's essentially what Mia described she witnessed on the morning of March 12th.
But if Mia is telling the truth, why would Denise and LaToya want Martre dead?
Detectives were eager to speak to both women and start unraveling this case.
They decide to bring in Denise first.
During that initial interview, law enforcement didn't provide every piece of information that we had to Denise. We wanted to see if she would give us any information that would assist us in proving that she, in fact, was involved in the homicide.
Where do you think he is? My gut feeling is he's with his girlfriend.
I guess, would you expect to hear from Trey, or would his dad expect to hear from him, or?
That's any given time, because I'm looking for him. I mean, we speak. It's not like we don't, say anything at all to each other.
Right.
She was just very nonchalant, completely unconcerned. We were hoping she would get curious and wonder how much we really knew. And the theory was that she may even be so bold as to go back to the location where Martre's body had been left in the tote to see if we had found him.
Police still had their hunting camera at the scene, waiting.
So after that initial interview, Denise was allowed to leave. We did not arrest her at that point, and she was allowed to go home.
Detectives soon learn this isn't Denise's first run-in with law enforcement.
She was from Richmond, Virginia, but she had lived other places. She had family in both North Carolina and South Carolina.
We learned that up and down the eastern seaboard, she had been convicted of and incarcerated for crimes that involved various forms of fraud and deceit.
This rap sheet she had was more than 10 pages long. It's just huge.
By 2014, Denise was recently divorced and out of jail when she met Martre's father, Terrence Coles.
Denise met Terrence Coles at a food plant where they both worked. Terrence was a really hard worker. He was a provider for his family, and that attracted Denise to him.
I just think that she was like infatuated with my father. He can be fun, comedian, very comical.
But Terrence was also still grieving the death of his wife and doing his best to cope.
Terrence was extremely vulnerable during this time. And this is where Denise really found an opportunity to almost groom him. She swooped in and she latched on.
I believe Denise's position at the time was very beneficial. He was used to having a wife at home, someone who caters to him, and when Denise placed herself there and were doing those things, he was okay with it.
After just a month of dating, Terrence moved Denise and 12-year-old Mia into the home.
Denise really stepped into the role of mother and wife. She was doing things around the house, cooking and cleaning, and she really seemed to be building a close relationship with Martre.
But in reality, was Denise a wolf in sheep's clothing? Investigators were about to get one step closer to proving that theory.
We went back to retrieve the memory card from that camera, and an individual had returned to that location.
She returned to the dump site.
They caught her on camera.
April 2017. In Henrico, Virginia, detectives are zeroing in on Denise Gay as their main suspect in the murder case of 19-year-old Martre Coles.
Denise's youngest daughter, Mia Gay, reported seeing Denise kill Martre with the help of her other daughter, LaToya.
And now, thanks to a camera investigator set up at the body dump site, they get another win in their case against Denise.
We found images of an individual caught walking through the camera shot.
It wasn't hard for detectives to see that, okay, that's Denise, that's her shape.
We believed that Denise was trying to take Martre's body and dispose it so that we would never find it. However, what she did not know is we had already found Martre's body.
When detectives get their hands on Denise's phone records, they uncover even more evidence tying her to the crime scene.
On the morning Martre was killed, phone records show Denise's cell phone pinging at her home until 2:30, and then driving over to the site where Martre's body was found, and she stayed there for 7 minutes.
Armed with these latest pieces of damning evidence, police decide to bring Denise in for another interview. But this time, they're playing hardball.
Law enforcement disclosed to her that Martre was dead and that we had found his body.
What happened? That's what we want you to tell us.
Denise is playing this thing off cool and collected. She's acting like, she doesn't know anything about the homicide.
You're saying that you know what happened?
We do.
What happened?
You killed him in your house. The last time you saw him, he was in a storage bin.
She never seemed to be shaken or rattled by anything that was presented to her. She was very stoic, and I would say you could describe it potentially as sociopathic behavior.
Police charge Denise with first-degree murder and keep her in holding while they prepare to speak with her daughter and alleged co-conspirator, LaToya Gay. But tracking down LaToya will be easier said than done.
When LaToya realized that investigators were looking into her being connected to Martre's murder, she got out of town.
We knew that the Gays had family connections in South Carolina. They were able to finally locate her staying with a family member, and they brought her into the police department in South Carolina.
Inside the station, detectives take a crack at getting a confession from the 21-year-old.
It was actually kind of entertaining to watch, because when they said, "We have a warrant for murder for you," she kind of jumped back and said, "For me?"
There's a murder warrant for you.
For me? Why is it for me?
And just like her mother, she denied her involvement and didn't admit to anything.
I don't know what you're talking about. For what you did. Okay. I didn't do anything.
Investigators indict LaToya on the same first-degree murder charges as Denise.
Police believe Denise was probably the driving force in the crime. But since LaToya helped her with the murder and disposal of the body, she was just as culpable in the eyes of the law.
Now that the two suspects are in police custody, detectives finally update Martre's family on the details of the case.
I was home getting ready for work, and I got a call from the detectives, and they said, "Martre's dead." I remember screaming to the top of my lungs. When I found out that Denise had been arrested for Martre's murder, I was happy because I never liked Denise. I knew she was evil the first time I met her.
However, Terrence Coles has an entirely different reaction.
Martre's father did not take the news that Denise Gay had been arrested well. He actually tried to argue and say there's no way she would have done this, she cares about him.
Will investigators be able to secure a conviction?
They still needed to figure out an explanation for why Denise and LaToya committed this horrific crime.
There's no requirement under the law that you prove a motive, but the jury's probably gonna want one in this case.
When the case goes to trial, a sordid motive is revealed that shows just how far Denise was willing to go to solidify a future with her man.
Denise went to great lengths for their relationship.
She was willing to murder for his love. I do believe Denise is a sick person, but I also believe that she really was obsessed with my father. She didn't want anyone around if his attention wasn't on her. Who would even think to involve her child into such nasty activity? It's traumatizing, and she not only hurt us, she hurt her own family.
On December 8th, 2017, nearly 8 months after 19-year-old Martre Coles was found suffocated to death, Denise and LaToya Gay stand trial for his murder.
In the courtroom, Denise absolutely showed no remorse, her or LaToya. There was a couple of moments where there was a bunch of laughing and giggling going on.
During the trial, prosecutors explain why Denise, the alleged mastermind, wanted young Martre dead.
What we learned about Denise Gay was that she was a very jealous woman, and we could think of no other reason for why she would literally sniff out the life of this precious soul, Martre, except for that he was in the way.
Denise was extremely threatened by Terrence's first wife, who had passed away, and she wanted to erase any memory of her, any trace of her.
Any trace, including Martre. Investigators believe Denise did everything in her power to have the 19-year-old kicked out of their home.
Authorities believe that she actually was the one who drew the pentagram that was found underneath Martre's carpet and set fire to his mother's car.
When those attempts failed to get Martre removed, Denise decided to take one final, unimaginable step.
Her answer was death, and she decided to murder Martre.
We were able to see that Denise Gay's computer in the house where Martre lived was the computer that was sending him emails proposing that he visit Full Sail University.
She figures that if Martre gets accepted into his dream university, no one would think twice if he goes away and they don't speak with him again.
On the morning of March 12, 2017, Denise put her heinous plan into motion with the help of her oldest daughter, LaToya.
I think she knew her daughter would agree to do it because I think LaToya had been manipulated by her mother for so long that she was probably more afraid of what her mother would do if she said no than of going to jail for her mother.
To make the process easier, Denise decided to drug Martre.
Perhaps she had given him some type of drink that she had put the drugs into so that he would be somehow subdued.
That was Denise and LaToya's opportunity to take him down. They suffocated him to death.
I absolutely believed that the jury would come back with a guilty verdict. I thought that the evidence was overwhelming.
But after the jury retires to deliberate, their verdict sends shockwaves through the courtroom.
The jury found LaToya and Denise Gay guilty on the conspiracy charge, but they were deadlocked on the murder charges.
The conspiracy charge will only yield a 10-year sentence.
I still to this day cannot wrap my head around how the jury agreed that LaToya and Denise Gay had conspired to kill Martre, but they couldn't agree that those two individuals had done it.
However, a surprising development involving Martre's father gives investigators a promising chance at a new trial.
Probably one thing that Detective Egan, nor Stacy, nor I would have ever imagined would have happened in a million years is the phone call that Detective Egan got from Terrence.
After seeing the evidence presented in the first trial, Terrence Coles had come around to the idea that his girlfriend Denise may not be as innocent as he once thought. And now he is willing to help law enforcement put her behind bars.
He had located Denise's purse in the closet that in fact had her cell phone there.
For investigators, the discovery of Denise's phone proves huge.
Investigators were able to see text messages between LaToya and Denise Gay about the dump site where Martre's body was found. And there were text messages about something being missing.
Investigators also find a number of bone-chilling internet searches that Denise had conducted on her phone.
There were things like how to dispose of a body.
When prosecutors reveal this explosive new evidence in a second trial on April 12, 2018, the outcome is decidedly different from the first one.
Denise was convicted of that murder charge, and the jury gave her the maximum sentence, which was life in prison.
LaToya was found guilty of murder, but she was sentenced to 20 years on the murder charge.
I think the jury felt that Denise was kind of the puppet master, and that's why the jury was more lenient with LaToya.
Despite the guilty verdicts, the pain of losing Martre still hits hard with his family.
We are still trying to get in a better place after Martre's death. She just took a lot from us, but I forgive her. I have to forgive in order to heal. Martre was a wonderful person. He, wasn't just a wonderful artist on paper. He was an artist in the inside. He could paint a smile without painting it. I miss him every day.
This case is just absolutely heartbreaking. You have a teenage boy who is grieving the death of his mother. And here comes a woman who looks like she might be another mother figure. And instead of truly caring about him and helping him through his pain, it's the ultimate betrayal.
I think that if Denise would have gotten away with Martre's murder, that she definitely would have done something horrible to me and my sister. There was no limit to what Denise was willing to do for my father's love. To be honest, I think she would have murdered everybody on earth for it.
Love often breeds infatuation. But when that infatuation turns into obsession, it can have deadly consequences, destroying everything in its path.
दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी सुल्तान भी आए बड़े बड़े सुल्तान भी आए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए आए हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी ऊंचे लम्हे महल बना दे ऊंचे लम्हे महल बना दे दगा फरेब ते जुल्म कमा दे दगा फरेब ते जुल्म कमा दे हाय कुछ नहीं खड़ते नाल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कुछ नहीं खड़ते नाल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया देंदी दुख बतेरे दुनिया देंदी दुख बतेरे वीरा कोलू वीर नखेड़े वीरा कोलू वीर नखेड़े आए मावा तू बिछड़े लाल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए मावा तू बिछड़े लाल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी सारे संगी सुख दे सजना सारे संगी नस जांदे जद आवे तंगी नस जांदे जद आवे तंगी हाय कोई नहीं गम दा प्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओह कोई नहीं गम दा प्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हसना रोना गम लाचारी हसना रोना गम लाचारी आज मेरी कल तेरी बारी आज मेरी कल तेरी बारी हाय कंजरी दी मिसाल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा बे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओह कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी पुत वे तुड़ानी मिट्टी दा वीरा पुत तुड़ानी मिट्टी दा वीरा अपना आप संभाल बशीरा अपना आप संभाल बशीरा हाय मिट्टी मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय मिट्टी मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी सुल्तान भी आए बड़े बड़े सुल्तान भी आए ओढ़क जा विच खाक समाए ओढ़क जा विच खाक समाए आए हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी